Oh yes, this is the Hardcore Marketing Show. I'm Casey Cheshire, your host for this epic journey. Today's show is sponsored by Ringmaster, on a mission to launch B2B podcasts that create relationships, generate revenue, and drive growth. Ringmasterlive.com. Bam. We're not doing it if it's not fun. That's what we just decided before the show began. I can't wait to introduce you to my guest today. He's exciting and he's cool and he's fun. And we're probably going to go grab a beer afterward if we could. Next time we're in the same continent. We're talking to each other across an entire ocean. And I got to tell you, his introduction spans across 2 pages. I have a page break in between it. I don't know how I'm going to handle this, but let me try. He's a marketing automation leader. A man after my own passion for marketing automation. I'm excited to pick his brain and learn from him today. And would you know, he's kind of like a Renaissance man. Not only does he know marketing automation, but he's traveled around our beautiful planet on a motorbike, just experiencing the raw humanity and seeing the weird stuff out there. And I can't wait to ask him about it. But he's also been named top 25 global B2B marketer. Holy crap. He's an author with another book coming out. He's a podcaster. He's a multiple times Salesforce certified Ohana member, a 2020 marketing champion, lead marketing automation architect at WePro. Brian Coles, welcome to the show, sir.
Sweet Jesus, that's amazing, and cheers for that. That was incredible. I'm going to tell my wife all these things, and she won't believe it.
Yeah, she's like, "That's nice. Go take out the trash."
Exactly right.
Man, well, I'm excited you're here. I can't wait to pick your brain. So I'm gonna get right to it. I'm gonna pick this thing up. You know what it is, but it's heavy, and you got it. Ugh. Okay.
Oh, I've got it.
Grab it. You gotta actually grab it.
I'm gonna get it.
Okay, you got it.
Got it.
Okay, there it is. Thors Hammer, ladies and gentlemen. Thors Hammer.
That's a heavy.
So, Brian, take Thors Hammer, smash for me some kind of myth, bogus strategy, misconception. Set the record straight once and for all.
Oh, mate, I'm so. This winds me up on a daily basis, and it's been winding me up on a daily basis for years, right? So, pardon my French when I say best fucking practice. I hate it, right? And I know that some people live by it, and some people even make a living by it, right? But what is it, right? And why do people use it so much? I mean, I remember it was about 8 years ago. 8 years ago, the word or the phrase started popping up everywhere, and people, was some best practice. What's that? Somebody was talking about there, and it come up in a meeting, and someone say, "Oh, we got to do best practice. What's best practice for that? What about the open rate for that email? What's best practice?" I mean, everywhere, everyone started saying best practice, and to my surprise, it hasn't gone away, and it makes me ill when I hear it. I physically, I have a physical reaction to it when I hear someone say it, and like I say, I'm guilty of it as well. I say it, right, but think about it for a second, right? Best practice is if someone says to you, what's your best practice way of setting up your marketing automation engine? It's like, well, hang about. You're asking me to find out what someone else has written about how they say, you should set up your marketing automation engine. Or it could be about content, right? What's best practice for this webinar content?
I was going to say, marketing automation, they just go buy you in my books. But, right, but for content.
Good plug. Right. But best practice is kind of, I think people say it, or corporations say it, to hide behind it, because they haven't got the balls and the insight to go and find their own good practice. That's what I say to people when they say, "What's best practice for this, Brian?" And after I flinch and freak out, I say, "Well, the problem with this best practice stuff out there, when you go and search for it on Google, what's best practice for that, is that it doesn't apply to you. It doesn't apply to your company. You've got your own company. You've got your own product, your own unique staff. I mean, everything about your company is unique. So why would you go somewhere else and find out what someone else thinks best practice is when they don't even know anything about you and your organization, all the rest of it, and your audience, and right? So best
right. It's kind of like relatives at some holiday giving you advice on how to. Like, they don't know, or like, at a mixer, some networking event, like, what you should do is X. Like, you don't know anything. You don't know any details.
I can't be dealing with it. So it's kind of, so it really freaks me out. What I say, is screw best practice, right? It's at best pooled ignorance. It's pooled ignorance. When you go out there and search for it, it's put. How old is that information anyway? So you make your own best practice. Did Google, right? When did Google when they got their stuff together? Did they say, "What's best practice for a search engine"? They
Right.
didn't, did they? Right?
No,
They tested the shit out of everything,
that's a
and it was
great point. That's a great point,
right.
right? Because if they had, then they would just make another Yahoo. We know how that went.
Exactly right. Exactly. Let's go and look. Let's go and what did Yahoo do? We'll do that, right?
Let's make a
So
better Yahoo.
right. So it's kind of like it does my brain in, and I think what it is, I think what people do is that what happens is someone says, okay, it's a similar thing to when they say we're going to hire this company, this I don't know, Ogilvy or Saatchi and Saatchi or
Okay.
name another big advertiser. We're going to hire these people because it's best practice to do that. Do you know what? Because if something goes wrong, my ass is okay, right? I'm not going to get fired. Same with best practice because they're an established thing, right? Same with best practice. If I then say, oh, really? That thing that I recommended that was best practice that didn't work out, that bombed. Oh, well, it was best practice, so
Yeah, well, I guess it's not my fault. It was best
that's what
practice.
I mean, right? That's it.
Interesting.
So I kind of internally vomit. I feel a little bit sick inside my throat when someone says best practice, and then I get all heated.
See now that it's like once you've seen one of those virtual images, you can't like unsee it, you know? Now,
No,
damn you, Brian Coles.
I'm so
Now that
sorry.
I've now that I've seen my eyes have been opened, how do you approach it? Are these I mean, you mentioned they're pulled ignorance. Are they just kind of like, I don't know, it's just a particular experience that someone had that maybe could help you, maybe not? Like how can you still learn from those kind of points? Or where should they be in your overall approach?
What best practice or when people ask for it or
Yeah, best practice. Like, can you use those, or
no?
are
I
they
say no.
completely rubbish? You just check the whole thing.
I would say that at best they're kind of indicators maybe. You know, it's kind
True.
of like when someone says, "Oh, it's I've got an open rate of whatever or click rate or whatever." Is that okay? Is that good? What's best practice? It's like okay, so you look at a Mailchimp report on, what for that industry is an okay. That's it's general guidance at best, but at worst it really is pooled ignorance that's been regurgitated on the internet year after year after year.
Mm,
And it's so it's things like when's the best time to send an email? Tuesday. What?
right.
Someone said that. So you've read it so many times. The best day is Tuesday to send an email. What the hell is that? You
Right.
know. So I think all I'm saying with this is, and you write about it in your book actually when you talk about testing. Test the crap out of everything. Make
Yeah.
your own best practice, right? And then that's something you can stand behind and be proud of, and shout from the towers about, because it's unique to your company and your product and your audience and your
Now I'm
geography.
trying to resist this as it's invading my brain, um, but I keep coming back to Yahoo, and it's like Google did not make Yahoo. It's completely different.
Yeah,
Yahoo's
that's right.
made, it's a directory. You have to, people don't even know this, but like you had to submit your website to Yahoo to list it. Like, please, Yahoo, list my website. In like a week, it would show up, and you
Yeah.
would tell it what description to put on there, what
Mm.
to show up for. Google's like, we don't want your opinion. We'll let you know if you show up or not.
I mean, right?
It was completely night and day different. Instead of a
Yeah,
directory, it was this sort of spider crawling the web, and
that's
it
it.
was it was different. So anytime you think that you're gonna, even if the industry standard, whatever standard is, or that
Mm.
report says that the auto industry has a 4% click-through rate, maybe you have 13 because you did something different. So it
Right.
doesn't define you. It's like those, those, have you ever been to one of those casinos where they have like a roulette table and there's
Yeah.
a monitor, a big TV screen that says all the past rolls? Like, by
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
way, the last roll was 12. So in case, like, it has nothing to do with the future roll.
Has nothing to do with it, right? That's a really good example, actually.
Yeah.
It's completely useless information, and that's all I'm saying with best practice
Okay.
let's get away from it, right? And let's get away from it. It's just let's try and move the planet away from that. And consultancies in particular are very keen on saying this that oh
Mm.
yes we do best practice. No. It
where
doesn't.
do we go to then instead? If we're moving away from that, how do I start? Like if I don't know the right strategy, other than buying Brian and mine's book,
Yes.
what like what are those things that we put in our books? If they're not best practices, what are they?
It's experience that we've uncovered. It's experience that we've and in your book it's wonderful because you talk about many stories, and stories are brilliant. It's been covered many times how effective stories are. It's real stuff you can relate to, whereas best practice is like it's not backed up with stories. Yeah, I don't know. I
I like
just
that. No, it's the story. It's like story based, or it's like
yeah.
that's why you see a lot of the Harvard Business Schools and other MBAs move toward teaching by here's a case study of what actually happened and then what was the result, not well best practices you do this and this and this. Well, like okay, maybe that doesn't work at all in the real world.
Exactly. Absolutely. So, yeah, all I'd say really is when someone says, well, what's best practice on this? I would always, and I'm sure you'd always come and your team would always come with, well, this is what happened with this person who's in a similar industry to you, with this maybe a similar product or, something like that. Use that for inspiration.
Yeah.
Don't go ahead and copy that, because that's the problem with best practice is that when you copy best practice, you're not doing anything original at all,
Yeah.
right? And you know when Netflix got their stuff together, they didn't say let's be Blockbuster.
Right. Right. They didn't at all.
um,
I was talking with brilliant guy Sean Schwegman yesterday on for the show, and we were talking about SEO and whatnot, and you know what? I got to introduce you guys because what he was railing on was the idea that this blog post should be 2,000 words.
all
You
right.
know, why? And he was
Why?
saying, actually, it doesn't. And he had one rank for like 300 words, and it beat out all the 2,000 page,
There you go.
essays because he did it the right way. But he
Yeah.
was saying that you'd see, to your point, best practices, and they were completely rubbish. People like the blind were following the blind off a cliff.
That's it, lemmings. So that's what we can
Lemons.
turn into, especially in corporations, because people like to cover their asses when it comes to an investment, most of the time, and there are very few brave souls out there. Yeah,
I
I'm
love
I'm
that.
a I'm a big believer in saying no, we're not going to do best practice. I understand what it is, but no, we're not doing that. Sorry, we're going to find it out for ourselves.
Mic drop right there. So instead of asking you for best practices, let me ask you for some experience share, some experiences. What if you were to share, what is your number one, you know, lesson you learned or experience or story relating to marketing automation, something that's near and dear to both of us? What would be the one story you'd want to tell people that you learned the most from with marketing automation? Or even a couple. I know you have like hundreds, so it's hard to
Yeah,
get down to one,
it,
but
it's really not about the tool at all, is it? It's about the people you've got around you, that can make things happen. It has nothing to do with the tool. Although we like Pardot and Salesforce, and we know it's working. So it's nice to have a tool that works, of course, as opposed to a blunt tool or a tool that you know um, uh, hurts your fingers when you start using it.
like Eloqua.
Um, right,
Cool.
right. When you get bloody hands, I just hit my hands with this tool.
Oh, that's my
So
keto you're talking about, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah. But so for me it's only about people. It's about nothing else. It's
Mm,
really only about surrounding yourself with the right people and being able to communicate with those people effectively. Again, I meet a lot of people in this business who say, I've got wonderful qualifications, I know this stuff inside out, but they can't communicate it, so it's dead in the water, whatever they want to say. You've got to be a good communicator, an effective communicator. You've got to listen, and paraphrase what's being said to you a lot. And I mean, when we use these,
hmm
we're taking in things that we don't know. When we're using this thing, we're just spouting stuff we already know. So it's far better to use these things, I think, than to use that. And it's amazing how many people just don't pick up that basic instinct of listen and please don't interrupt me, right? Because I won't interrupt you. Manners. I'm English, right? So manners are a big thing. But
Proper manners. Yeah.
you know,
Um, right.
I
And
swear a bit, but
and earlier, with people listening going, what is he doing? You're pointing to your mouth, pointing to your ears. Like, so it's so true. When you use your ears, you're learning something.
right.
Even if you
And
already
I
know the
just
information, you're learning that this person knows it and nine
yeah,
other different ways of saying it. And but you're learning. But when you're talking, that part's not
Yeah.
happening.
Right, and when when you're in listening mode, you can read the signs and you pay attention to body language and all the rest of it. So that's also very telling about what the motivations of these people are that you're around, right? So, developing that skill, I think, and empathy is everything, right? I mean, I've got a whole chapter dedicated to empathy in the book. So I'm a big believer in all of that stuff. Empathy
Okay.
based marketing.
And and I actually want to hear about that. That's the new one, right? The
Yeah.
okay.
Yes. Yes.
I want to hear about that, but no one would let me stay alive if I had, one of the worldwide top B2B marketers on the show, knows marketing automation, who didn't give me some kind of tactical, practical, or some kind of tip I can cut up with a steak knife and eat it with smushy peas.
Okay. So again, a bit controversial what I'm about to say. Maybe people have said this on your show before, but I'm going to say it. Forget everything else. Just do email marketing. Oh, I said it. I
Forget
said it.
everything else. Just do email
Just do
marketing.
email marketing. I'm a big fan. I started out with email marketing as an email marketer, and I fell in love with this old technology. It's 40 years old or something, and it's not the shiny new toy anymore, and all the rest of it. But there's so much that email marketing gives you, right? And I'm sure it's been covered before, but just concentrate all your firepower on that stuff. Get that down. Get your value proposition into every single email that you're writing in some way. Get that red thread, get it all connected up. Make sure you don't come across as schizophrenic in your email messaging, but there's some consistent messaging that actually makes sense when you receive an email from, I don't know.
Can you talk about that? How do we end up acting like crazy people when we email like that? What?
Yeah, we just unfortunately, I think what happens is that we set up these these wonderful journeys, um, automations, and then we also set up we also got a campaign calendar to follow at the same time, and so you could be easily getting an email that was created in a journey 2 years ago maybe, right,
Right.
with content and thinking from 2 years ago, and then all of a sudden you've got this new sort of campaign. Oh, you got this webinar to get out, and so it's a bit, oh, traffic lights, I'm getting this and that, and you come across as schizophrenic. A great value proposition is going to be brilliant there if you stay true to your messaging all the way through in what you do. So yeah.
God, I could see how it almost like a little whiplash of maybe it's the old brand on that last thing, or
Yeah,
you're trying to
exactly, right.
make a joke. Yeah, yeah.
So I think things, if you haven't got a good control over what messaging's going out. The classic one was COVID, wasn't it? When it all kicked off,
Yeah,
it's like, oh God, we got to look at all our messages, and we got pictures of people having a fun time in a park together. Shit, no. Well, we got to change that, right? And so doing an audit, I think, every year on every bit of messaging you do is a good thing.
yeah. I
But
agree.
it's not popular. It's not popular, that stuff, is it?
Yeah, there is something to that, and I wonder if it's worth trying to dissect that. There's the popular, and then there's the things that actually work. You know.
Yeah. Oh, that's true. Yeah, but it's proving the things that actually work, isn't it? A
Mm.
lot of the time, because a lot of times I'll go into an organization and say you've got to do something called a, what do they call it? Content cluster bubble or something like that. I can't
Okay.
remember the name of it now. All right, a content cluster map. Sorry, content cluster map, and it's called other names, I'm sure. But take all the content you got that you've ever produced on the planet that's still alive, and cluster it into things that mean something, right? So the classic one is high, middle, low funnel content. Okay, that's one cluster that you've got for all your content. You tag it and all the rest of it. Another one is like, what pain is it? So all these things. Um, but no one really wants to do it because they don't know what the value is. So you've really got to explain it and knock on people's doors. There's a communication bit there.
Yeah.
You know, you've been able to communicate why this is a good thing to do, why you've got to invest so much money in doing this content cluster map. Yeah.
When it can seem like so much more fun to just create some more content instead.
Yeah, exactly. And you just do your job and and not have to fight anyone or have to kind of you know wind anyone up or be Mr. Unpopular for a while because you're making this guy or this girl do more work they don't want to do.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Huh. Man.
So yeah, I think but to answer your question, I just think, like I say, put all your firepower into email and one other thing. Sorry about that.
Yeah.
Send more email. Send more, not less. Don't, because I used to be the one that would go around preaching to people when I first got into product and marketing automation. Like, oh, stop, kill your campaigns, kill your campaigns. Everything's got to be a journey or triggered or behavioral based and all the rest of it. I think it's got to be a healthy mix of the two, of stick to your campaigns, do some good segmentation work, and make sure your messaging is on point and all the rest of it for that group of people you're sending it to. But don't stop your campaigns. Keep them going together. And it's kind of like it, we don't, when we're email marketers, we got this kind of chip on our shoulder, haven't we? Because you introduce, what do you do? I'm an email marketer. Oh God, you're the one that sends all that spam, aren't you? Bloody hell, you're just a nuisance. Right? And you hear that all the time, right? And then your shoulders kind of get lower and lower and lower, and it's like, oh, I've got a low opinion on myself. But it's hats off, and you know it yourself, right? Okay, see, it's the best performing channel out there. You don't even bother measuring ROI. It's already won the battle.
Right.
It's already won.
True.
Right? Don't measure it. It's won. It's the best. It costs peanuts to send another email.
What else are you going to do? Send them more letters in the mail? It's the backbone of the thing. There is, you can dabble and try out more sources for acquiring people, but once you have them, how you're going to have your sales call them weekly? No.
Right. Tell them about, oh, we're top of mind, right? We just keep us top of mind. Yeah. Bye.
Right. Cheers. But it is interesting. You said send more email. I mean, I kind of, I'm learning from you as you say that too, because sometimes I'm hesitant to, let's not overwhelm them. But if it's good stuff, then they don't mind getting it. It's only when it's garbage that it just pings them.
Right. But we also pay too much attention to rates, and not absolute. Because again, if you say, okay, I'm going to send one email a year, but I've got an amazing rate, a fantastic open rate, only 5 people opened it. Whereas, you send 100 emails, the same email over the course of a year, you've got a terrible open rate, but 200 people opened it, which means you've had 200, 195 people do things for you, and exposure and all the rest of it. So we like rates again because it gives us a safe, good feeling. But the absolute numbers are what the CEO is really interested in at the end of the day. How many opportunities did it create? Oh, not many this year, but we got high click rate. Screw you with your rates.
Or we had a really low spam rate. Like I think sometimes I'm even guilty of this, being so afraid of not wanting to unsubscribe. Maybe that's okay. And now I don't mind the people that shouldn't be here unsubscribing, but even the ones that probably should, it's like you can't win everyone. Now, if half your list is leaving, that's a problem. But understanding that, okay, we lost 5 people, but we had 1,000 opens. So sorry, 5, we're still going to send that email.
Right? It's life, isn't it? It's just life. That's how it is. And people get too caught up on rates, I think. Which is a bit crazy.
Well, it's a good reminder that to think about the opens is weird too, but clicks is weird, but to not necessarily think about the punitive things so much. We're all afraid of the canned spam laws and all the different privacy things. But what's happening on the positive side?
I know. But also, people need to take more risks.
Yes.
We're so risk averse. We're so big, all this private. I mean, the thing is, GDPR, right? Get this, right? So in Denmark, where I live, when GDPR happened, billions were spent. Companies making, and we're only a population of 6 million people here, right? Not very much, but billions were spent on trying to get GDPR. And then the government say, yeah, we got a task force, a GDPR task force, right? That's gonna, and everyone's thinking, oh God, they're gonna come and knock on my door.
Right.
How many people do you think were employed in that task force? Who? It's like, so what are we worried
people
about?
Against the world.
Do you know what I mean? Like 2 people to go around, God knows how many thousands of organizations and check up on their GDPR. It's not going to happen. And then also, in my mind with GDPR, I know we're going off on a bit of a tangent here, but
cool.
It was there to stop the big tech companies from abusing their power, and for the nasty little organizations that set up to do bad things on the internet. Your average organization is clean and good. and yet we suffer from it, right? We've got this paranoia thing. So yeah, my little
Yeah,
rant
and when
there
that
about
first came out, everyone was freaking out about it.
yeah.
It was the
Um,
it was the most clickbaity thing that marketing had
yeah,
for a while.
yeah, right. Right. So I mean, it's fair enough. I mean, I get the point and the principle and everything to be protected as an individual, but organizations, they're too risk averse, I think.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. I get that. What keeps you awake at night? What are the challenges that are driving you crazy these days?
Oh, I really have a problem keeping up with stuff.
Yeah,
I really, right, keeping up, because you want to provide value, and you want to provide good advice to people that's based on knowledge, and you haven't got all the knowledge. We haven't.
right.
It's impossible, right? So I find that very frustrating that I don't have all the knowledge that I need um, in a given space and time. So often it comes up in client meetings, and I'll be like, I'm sorry, I don't know. I
Right.
just don't know.
Well, with
I'll
tech, I mean,
I'll come
you
back
know,
to you on that one.
they're constantly changing, and sometimes
Right?
not even the developer that made the change knows what they just did.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
there is no documentation initially.
Exactly.
Sorry,
Exactly.
we made a change. I hope it doesn't break
Hope
your
it works out
systems.
for you guys.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
hope it
So
works out
so
for you.
all it's typical with all the releases that we get,
Yeah,
and everything going on, and that's just with our cloud. I mean, there's other stuff going on in other clouds, right? And
yeah.
so I need to have a proper huddle with my counterparts to say, what does this all mean? You
Mm-hmm.
know. So yeah,
Yeah,
that's what keeps me up, is not being able to, not having all the knowledge at my fingertips sometimes.
yeah. I could see that being the case.
Yeah. What
It's
about
all
you? I mean,
swirling around us.
right? What about you? What keeps you up at night?
God, what keeps me up at night? Hmm. Well, our neighbors have some teenage daughters
That's okay. Okay, that's
that
annoying.
does it. They're them
Oh,
pulling their cars in at whatever o'clock,
oh,
blasting whatever the
oh,
latest pop star
oh.
is.
Okay.
um, I think it's probably to do with authenticity, with
Mm,
connection. Like I'm just a huge connection. Like I love this podcast because I get to
yeah.
connect with you for a period of time.
Yeah, I love it.
Um, and and if other people can learn, fantastic. And I'm
Yeah.
glad they're along with the journey. But I get to learn and I get to connect. And I don't know. I guess this is nothing new, but just the idea of new technology, video, if it can help us connect more. Shout out to Bomb Bomb. You send a Bomb Bomb video to friends, great. But then the fake connection, or like people using LinkedIn or Facebook for, well, I guess LinkedIn, still the spammers, right? Or
Yeah.
people using Facebook for like sales, and
Yeah.
and I even called someone out and I was like, so are you gonna pitch to your friends again today?
Yeah.
Like what are you doing? And he was like, oh well,
Exactly.
these people aren't my friends. These are my acquaintances, and blah blah blah. Good, he had a good. He sent me a video on it.
Ay,
Okay, that was authentic. But like what you did earlier, I don't know. I maybe I'm old fashioned, but I like the idea of connecting with a certain group of people, and you're not selling to them because you're like a community more so.
mm,
And then you
yeah.
have that was always the thing for me was like Facebook was like the people I want to have see my pictures of my kids, right? I don't want everyone to see that or me like fat on the couch because I'm snuggling a kid like a polar bear or something. But like, there's like those kind of photos, and then there's
Yeah.
LinkedIn or Instagram or everything else that's more public. Not that you want to be fake, but you want to be able to just be more of yourself. But I see that
Okay.
that line kind of erodes a bit, and I don't know
And
what to do about it.
no, I get it. I get it. I get it 100%. And um, I, there's a book, Thinking Fast and Slow, by Daniel Kahneman. I don't know if you read it.
What's it called?
Thinking Fast and Slow. Daniel Kahneman,
Okay.
he won the Nobel Prize from the research he based this book on. But
Wow.
what it does. It talks about our brain, system one, system two, and system one is the rational brain. No, system one is the lazy brain. System two is the rational brain, the thinking brain. And we use the emotional brain, the system one brain, more than we think we do, or
Mm-hmm.
more than we like to give ourselves credit for. We think that we're more rational, and actually we're not. Most of our decisions and things that we do and things that drives us come from this system one brain, which is kind of emotional, really, and silly. So I think this is what's happened. Is that's why we see the rise of social media being such a dominant thing in our lives.
Yeah.
Is because it appeals to our system one brain. We haven't got to think about it, have we? We just go on and browse through it. But so I think that's why there's a lot of silliness going on in the world around social media. But I'm not a guru on the subject. I mean,
yeah, we're just.
But I agree.
Fellow mice in the maze of social media. Have you
Yes.
seen that social media documentary?
The social dilemma.
Yeah.
Fantastic, man.
Is it? I still haven't seen it yet. I should see
Oh
it.
man.
Right?
Oh, and watch it with your kids, yeah, Casey.
Oh.
Watch it with your kids as
Oh
we
yeah.
did.
Oh.
Mm. Watch it with your kids because they learned from it, and they're like, "We're not doing TikTok." Not they are, they're not on TikTok, but they're like, "We're not going to do it." So it was an
How
education.
old when they saw it?
Well, it was so our kids are 8, 10, and 12.
Okay, 8 and 9 here.
Mm.
So okay, it's not.
Mm.
That's great because it would help combat them wanting to be getting the likes and TikTok popular because they don't know any better anyways, and their little cute little brains are going to just want the dopamine hit.
Basically, right, and it
Yeah.
explains it brilliantly. And there's a very good it shows a family kind of like blowing up,
Oh,
actors
I heard
blowing
there's
up.
bad acting. I've heard. It's like a
It's a bit,
cheesy bad acting that like you didn't need that, but maybe you
yeah,
did. Because to your point, it's the story, not the lesson. You remember the family. I hear um,
exactly. So it was
blowing up.
right. So it was good to definitely watch it.
Okay.
Definitely watch it in your kids. Got to ask you, why did you write your book? What was the driving force behind you writing your book? Do you think?
Yeah, I think for me, um, I wanted to encapsulate all of the stories and experience and strategies and knowledge that I had somewhere to be able to
Yes.
give to people. And I think we were joking earlier, like I think I bought more of my book for people than
Yeah.
have people have actually bought it. But I'm okay with that because the point was not to make $1 million from a book. By the way, that doesn't actually happen unless you're J.K. Rowling's. But like,
Yeah.
it's not about that. But I
No.
wanted to get the information into people's hands,
Yeah.
and I wanted them. I had a really cool experience when I first used Pardot, and it changed the game for me. And I went from being a marketing manager to a VP of marketing in like 3 years. It was insane. All I
Yeah.
was doing was showing ROI and tracking, marketing ROI. And the
Yeah.
game changed from let me reduce your budget. How much can you cut to can I give you, oh, I gave you 5. Can I give you 10? How about 15,
Yeah.
20? Does 25 work?
Yeah.
Like, can I scale this now is the problem as opposed to, so I just flipped the script for me. I didn't become an activity marketer anymore. It was all about ROI. And I just wanted people to experience that too,
Yeah.
and as even my own company grew and other people were kind of coming in on board into the system in for me the strategy got more and more interesting. Like the tech
Yes.
was always there, and now people are way better at the tech than I am because it continues to go, and that's great and that's good. We need those people too, but there's always the question of like, okay, I know how to use this. What do I use it? What do I do?
Yeah. Yeah.
What do
Exactly.
I nurture people
Yeah.
with? So I just filled it chock full of best practices.
Yeah.
Just kidding.
I'm just going to
Trying
turn the light on it. It's getting a bit grainy. Hold up. Back in a sec.
okay, no worries. I was just trying to see if I could turn him into the Hulk, throw a little shots fired here and there. Yeah, you get the light going. That's good.
Is that all right?
Glad I'm not the only one that's grainy. This is why it's an interview podcast because when you
Yeah.
walked away, I was completely lost. I'm so glad you're back. I don't know how
No,
people do those individual podcasts where they just talk.
no, I know it's difficult. I've tried it for a while with webinars, but when you're the Lone Ranger, it does get a little bit But
Yeah.
so, no, that's interesting because what you've seen, of course, over the years is what we all experience. I think when we first get with marketing automation is the fact that it's a disruptive force,
Oh
isn't
yeah.
it? It
Oh
just
yeah.
disrupts the crap out of everything.
Yeah. It's not like
Uh,
business as usual in your marketing. Yeah.
no, again. That's why I wanted to write about it as well because it was yeah. There's a lot to be said and it's misunderstood, isn't it? So yeah,
100%. So speaking of which, your book, your new one coming out. What I know we were talking, it's soon, right? Is it coming out
yeah.
yesterday?
So yeah, it was. So I've nearly finished it, and it's going to the editor in the next 2 weeks.
What's
But
left? The dedication to Casey Cheshire.
yeah, actually, it's really boring stuff, like looking at the references, because I reference a lot of things and people and stuff. So you got, of course, you got to cover your bum in that.
True.
With all that stuff. So it's got to be in references. So in the back, but yeah. So I want to. The plan was to have it back, to have it printed next month, and so that's still the plan. Yeah,
Nice.
that's still the plan.
Let's give a shout. Where can people find out more information or get on the mailing list when it comes out? What's it about? Kind of tell everyone.
It's about it's kind of I've kind of had two books in me for a while. One of them is about the travels that I've done around the planet on a motorbike, and the experiences that I've had with different people, places, and all the rest of it. And the kind of a similar story about your travels around corporations and the experience you have with people and places and all the rest of it, and the fact, of course, that there's a lot in common there with those two stories. So what I'm trying to do is make it. I'm bored of business books. I'm bored of your book's brilliant because it's conversational and I feel like I'm with you when I'm talking. So my book is in a similar vein to that. It's got this added sort of travel thing in. And I've so I've got some chapters. I've written a few down here. Some chapter titles. These might give you a flavor of what it's kind of about.
Yeah.
So I'll just read these out. Not in any particular order, but just randomly chosen. Is this shit legal? We are rational, not emotional. Sorry, no, we are rational, get emotional. Creating your value proposition. Find your Uncle Barry. System 1 and 2 brain, and a poo story. So it's mixed up.
I'm with you that like the business book thing is just like it's so dry,
right. So, and the reason that I wanted to write this book and that I put the motorcycle sort of journeys in is because we are all on a journey, aren't we, with marketing automation? And we hear about, get marketing automation, build journeys for people. Stop that for a minute. Just have an appreciation of like the journey you're on, right? When you pick this up, that's a huge journey. And the organization and the other people, you're taking everyone on a journey, right? So that's why I've called it your marketing automation journey and tales from the real world, because it's focused on the individual reading it, that you are on a journey, and there are some real world stories like your book out there that I want to share, but it's with a travel kind of vibe to it as well. So hopefully that's given enough kind of like what the heck, what's he talking about?
And so so in a month or so, and do you want people to, how do you want people to keep track or follow?
Yeah, they can just go on to, if you just Google my name, Brian Coles, Brian with an I and then Coles, it comes up, third one down, brian-coles.com.
Brian-coles.com.
And then people just give me a little form in there, and I'll keep them informed when it's all.
I see it. Yeah. Okay, cool. I will link to this in the show notes so people can just click right on through to it.
Thank you. Nice little plug.
I love the cover. It's fantastic.
Yeah. It's a bit fun, isn't it? But so it's just, for me, it's just I mean, there's a little bit in there about, do you remember the film Finding Nemo?
Oh yeah, of course.
Right? Amazing bit of script writing, but it's actually the classic story. And I know you've talked about stories before, and so I talk about that. I kind of explode that, and why you as a marketing automation person are a script writer. You're writing stories for people. You're taking people on a journey, because in Finding Nemo, like all classic stories, the guy at the start of the film, Marvin, is a freaked out little parent. All of his fishy children have been eaten by this bloody shark.
Jeez.
And then, so he's paranoid. He's a paranoid, freaked out parent, right? And you're a parent. We're both parents. We know how that feels, right?
Totally. Yeah.
Wrap your kids in cotton wool. And then, so he goes on a transformation. He goes on a journey, doesn't he? Quite literally, and emotionally as well, and inside himself. He goes and he comes out a different person at the end, right? And I think that's what we're doing, aren't we? When we take people on journeys through our marketing automation engine, is that we want to change their thinking, or show them the right path, if you like. So what I'm saying is that in that particular chapter is how you do that, or at least have an appreciation for it.
Yeah, I love the idea of they're a different person when they get off the train as when they got
Right.
onto it. You know,
Yeah.
if they're the exact same person, they didn't need to ride the train. Nothing
Right.
happened. They didn't go
Right.
anywhere. Nothing. They just
Exactly.
they sat down. Sorry, flight's canceled. And they got off the plane, and then
Exactly.
like nothing different about them.
Yeah.
And they didn't really do anything. But
No,
instead, you want
exactly.
them to be a different person when they get off the
Basically.
plane or
And
train. Yeah.
and and,
Wow.
that- and that's and it's sort of, sort of go into that a little bit. So, but yeah, because there's a lot of this kind of journeys. Yeah, journeys are great, but have an appreciation for the journey you're on, and,
Right.
and that's what kind of takes
Yeah,
people
and that can
through,
help
really.
you then look at somebody else's journey and plan
Right.
that yourself. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And don't listen to best practice while living
You're
your
right.
journey.
Right. Otherwise, if you say best practice 3 times, do you appear in their room and haunt them till they die? Is that
Yeah,
how that
exactly.
works?
Or I'll projectile vomit over them or something. And it's just like,
Oh
oh.
God, you like The Exorcist. That's amazing. Dude, Brian, who are you? That's my next question. Who are you? Can you take me back in time, like little Brian days? Where did you grow up?
Oh,
Did you always know you were going to be an author, an
no.
explorer, a marketer, all these
No,
things?
I was just a weird kid with ginger hair, and and I lived in London in the if you like, it was a very lovely place that I grew up in, lovely area, but it was a bit
Was it
hard
like the
around the
suburbs
edges.
around London? How does that
Yeah, it
work?
was. Yeah, it was a bit hard around the edges, so it was a bit street, not
Tell
nothing compared to
what
some of the
what was
ghettos.
the neighborhood called? Like so people can judge you if they're from the UK.
It was called Brentford, and it was
Brentford.
close to Ealing, where I then spent the rest of my days. It's in West London, and it's a very nice area. It used to be a very nice area. Ealing's nice, some parts of it,
Okay, did you
but
say that was a tough area?
it was when I was growing up. I mean, it
Okay.
was, and I cover some of that toughness and issues in the book as well. And again, because we're all on this wonderful journey in our lives,
Yeah.
but no. So I grew up in London, and then I listened to bikes a lot. I think I was out on the street a lot, right? Much more than my kids are, because I want to wrap them up in cotton wool. You're
Totally.
falling over a lot. Doing little jumps on the bike over little bits of ramps and stuff, and hurting myself, and doing all that really, and getting into mischief. And then that got me into motorbikes. I like motorbikes. I'm not a biker per se, but I'm more of a traveller that likes going around on a two-wheeled thing with a motor on.
Right. Why
And
pedal when you
then
can just have the thing do it for you?
exactly. And then on my first trip, I went around the planet. I went into your beautiful country, and I fell in love with America and Americans. I didn't. I don't think you get enough credit in Europe as to how wonderful you are as a nation. So you really have to go there and see the people,
Hmm.
and travel around and see how incredible the countryside is. We get sold New York, Disneyland, right? All these things. We don't get sold, Yellowstone National Park, and
Hmm.
you know, um, the Great Plains you have, and we. So it's weird. So when I went to America, I'm like, I didn't know it was this beautiful, right?
Interesting, right?
I didn't
Hey, it's a
know
good
it was
reminder,
this
don't judge
beautiful.
a country by its leader, right?
Right.
Leaders,
Exactly. Yeah, I know exactly.
or
I know.
the
Right.
latest company or arrest there, as much as the
Right.
news might want.
Exactly.
There's like real great
Exactly.
people in these different places. Yeah.
Exactly. Incredible, incredible people, incredible states. The difference between the states, the culture is so rich. The history is incredible, right? So people go to America. I could easily live there. I think it's fantastic. But so I started my trip in New York, went to Vancouver, then was it Vancouver? No, Montreal. Then went over to Alaska, and then went all the way down to Argentina.
Wow.
I did that in a
Seriously.
year. Yeah, and halfway down, I met my wife. Obviously,
Really?
she wasn't my wife. Yeah, halfway in
Well,
Mexico.
Mexico. Wow.
Yeah.
How how
So
how did that happen? You guys meet? You're fueling up the motorbike, and she walked
kind of.
by.
Well, see, it was. It's a bit corny, this story, but it is 100% true. I got off the bike after traveling from Mexico City for like Christ knows how many hours. I was exhausted. Walked through this hostel door where I was set to stay the night. Walked in. There's a beautiful courtyard, as Mexicans
Sure.
do, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And then she was in the middle. There she was in the middle of this bloody courtyard, talking to her friend, shaft of sunlight, just catching her
Really?
face, right? Yeah, just catching her face. It was corny, and I thought, and I had a pizza with me and a beer that I just bought, and then checked in. And I thought, I have to say something. I have to. I was drawn to it. It was something in the fate or in clouds. And I was saying, you've got to
Yeah.
talk to this girl. And I did for 2 hours. And then she says, I've got to go. See ya. I'm like,
Wait, wait,
what?
wait. Hold on. What was your? How did you open?
Oh, I can't remember. Do you want a bit of my pizza? I don't know.
Right. Hey, you hungry? This is too much pizza for one person.
Exactly.
Oh,
Yeah.
something probably corny, but it worked, and she didn't
I,
tell you to go away. So, but she had to
no.
go.
Like she had to go. And I'm like, what do you mean? We're having a great time. She goes, yeah, I've got a bus ticket. I've pre-booked. Got to go 1,000 kilometers south. I'm like, I'll catch up with you. Now, I tell you what, I probably won't catch up with you, but give me your email address and I'll email you. She's great, great. Let's talk and let's meet up in Denmark, which is where I'm from. And it was brilliant. And my heart was exploding. It was amazing. And
Well,
then,
she
and
was
then
from Denmark.
she's Danish, my wife. Yeah. She was from
Oh,
Denmark
okay.
traveling.
And she was doing the whole traveling thing too. Oh, that's money.
Well, she was on the second trip, but on this trip, she was on that trip with a friend. Um,
Gotcha.
Right. So, and then guess what happened, right? So I got her email address and a piece on my little black book, put it in my rucksack, my little day pack, and
Oh
went to
no.
sleep. The next morning, woke up and we'd all been ripped off. All the rucksacks had been stolen. So her email address it just went. My future just went out the
Shit.
door.
What'd you?
Yeah, shit.
But
Yeah.
you're in Denmark now, so we know that the ending is good. But like, what? How do you fix that?
Well, it's cut long story short, she's very determined, my wife, and she went around all the hostels for the rest of a month trip and said, has anyone met an English bloke on a motorbike? And one guy said, yeah, I do. The Swedish guy said, I know Brian. Here's his email address.
No way.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
And if she
So,
hadn't done that,
yeah, she's
and I guess you
tenacious.
would just, what can you do? You just got to keep biking on down.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I
How
mean, it's
far
a
did
big
you get
country.
before you got an email from her?
Oh, it was a couple of weeks after that, actually, because
So a
she
couple
had
weeks, you're kind of moving on with your life, bunch
thinking,
of
Jesus,
obscenities, I'm sure, and then it's just like, okay,
yeah.
well, but
And I
she
got this
tracked you down. Wow.
email from this beautiful woman again. So yeah, I was very happy about that. But fate, huh? I'm a big believer in fate. Fate,
What is that? What was that?
fate, fate. Right?
That's
Fate.
magic.
Right. We just stop trying to control our lives. Fate is has a lot to do with things. So after I believe in fate a lot.
Yeah. So
Not faith,
be open and
fate.
observant to it, and allow it
Yeah.
to be.
Yeah.
Is it allow for the unknown? You know, it's kind of
Exactly.
right. I don't know. Can't explain it, but
Exactly.
it's there.
And right. And that leads me into kind of my beef with social media because there's no serendipity in reading there's no happy accident in social media. You read a newspaper, right? And you're like, oh, I've learned something new here today.
Hmm.
Never with social media. It's all targeted, isn't it?
Right.
Anyway,
Right. Man.
I want to ask you, I've
Oh
got a
yeah.
question. Your most influential person, who's influenced you the most?
Gosh,
Anyone in your life?
that is a really good question. You
Who?
know, yeah. Shout out to Tim Hoffman.
All
Um,
right.
I was uh I did do very good in college the first year because I was trying to do every hobby. I was able to do that in high school, but you can do that because you can sort of dip your toe. But in
Yeah.
college, they all want you to be like full time in their thing, right?
Oh,
So, I was ROTC, and then I got cast in a theatrical play,
oh,
and
really?
all these things. But they all wanted it like to be your full time. On a whim, I'm like, let me join the choir. Why? Because they had trips to Belgium every year. I'm like, okay. So I joined all these things, and they're like, no, we want you like every day. I'm like, I can't do. So, anyways, it was a rough go, and I had to, um, you know, uh, just go home and go to a local university. But I remember that summer, I'd learned HTML on my own, and I kind of could see good websites and terrible websites. And
Ah,
most people, this is in like late '90s, had terrible
yeah.
websites, and so I
Yeah.
would email them and tell them that their sites were terrible, and then I could fix them. And
That's
I got some people
fantastic.
that would take it and like, how much to fix this? And this is this, and that was
Wow.
my summer job as a college student. And but one particular person had a site that was good. It's great and had some cool bells and whistles to it. And he was running this local IT company, like IT repair, networking, security, that kind of thing. And I was like, you know what, your site is great. I like it. That FYI, I'm emailing people right now telling them that they all suck and yours is not like that. And they wrote back and they said, "Oh, thank you." And then somehow they're like, "Do you want to come work for us and build websites?"
Oh, I love it.
And so I started there, but it became um, more than just a web job. And so I think he was very supportive of like hiring an entrepreneur or hiring someone creative like that can be really risky because they're all over the place. But I remember I had business cards for the first time when I was like 21, 22, and it was the director of innovation, right? Because he said, "What do you want for a title?" And I thought, "I'll be the director of innovation." And I don't even know what that means, but it was a small company. And he's like, "Who cares?" And so
Yeah, let's
director of
go for it.
innovation, but that kind of, and so it was there that all sorts of opportunities opened up. One was, he got a chance to, he did some work for the radio station nearby and they couldn't pay radio.
Right.
Early lesson, radio doesn't have any money to pay any for anything. And they traded him airtime for it. And so I remember he had a radio show and I joined as his call screener back in the day when people would call but eventually he's too busy running his company. So he was like, "You host the show." And
Come
then
on.
I was able to do a little marketing, didn't even realize it. And I'm pretty sure I talked to Jeff Bezos. It was a long time
Oh,
ago, but I'm pretty sure I landed these people because I was like, this show has a 1.2 potential million listener audience. Well, in radio, you never really know if they're listening, but you also don't know if they're not listening. So I was like, it could be big. And so people would accept, and I got, execs from IBM and all sorts of different places to join. And it was the .com hour. And it was fun. And I tried
wow,
stuff and I shout out to Tim, credit for him because he just sort of like gave me swim lanes and was like, "Do you, help
that's cool.
fix these clients' websites and do this radio show thing and see where it goes." And it was a very supportive environment, and he let me just run with it. And I couldn't tell you, I saw my transcripts recently, but my grades in school, not so much. But it's because I was learning really from Tim and his company in the real world.
That's fantastic. What a great
Yeah,
story. What a
yeah,
great
good
story.
deal.
Have you told him this
I
before?
don't know. I should link him to this podcast.
Oh, yeah. Call
Should
him
totally
up. I
do
mean,
that.
can you imagine how much he's gonna like love hearing that? I mean, that's gonna make his year, I would imagine.
Maybe it
What a great
should. It
story.
should, Tim.
Right, do. I mean, because because this again, this is what I would do in my motorcycle trips that I've done. Is I dedicate a whole day thinking about someone, and
Mm,
normally when you do that, when you have so much time, it's a real gift to say, "Well, I'm going to spend today thinking about this person, what they've helped me, and what they mean to me, and how they've done things, that have influenced me." And do you know what happened? Nearly every single time, at the end of the day, I'd be so overcome with emotion, I pick up the phone, and I'd say, "I love you, man. I love you. I love you." I'd be nearly be,
yeah.
and they'd be like, of course they were like, "What the, what? What's have you been smoking crack?" Right? And
Right.
and of
Are you
course,
in Colombia? Like, where
you know
are
what
you?
I mean, right? What
Yeah.
are you doing? Because they're in a completely different state than I am.
Right.
But it's such a wonderful thing
Yeah.
to think about people and what they mean to you. So
That's powerful. I have a question for you. It's kind of a hypothetical. I'll meet your question with my question. And here's I may have a time machine in New Hampshire here,
mm,
and I'll let you use it. Post COVID, come on over, get some lobster. We'll mess around with the time machine and get some beer. It takes you back in time to some point in time early on typically we say like a couple days after graduation. I don't know where graduation was before. Was that before the motorcycle trip for you?
yes,
Okay. So a couple days after um, college, university, graduation. So you're sober now. If you had a party, you're done that now. If you talk to that version of Brian, what kind
mm,
of things would you tell him? What kind of advice would you give him? And not the advice for the world, but for you in
no,
particular, because you and the journey you've been on already.
mm. Oh God. So I saw a quote from Matthew McConaughey the other day, one of my heroes, right? And I think I would have said this. I would have said, "Be careful what you tolerate, because you're teaching people how to treat you." I would say that because when you do that, when you have that mantra going around in your head, it gives you a lot more courage than you normally would have. Because I'm a pleaser. I like to please people, right? I like to kind of like I like people to like me. But
Same.
sometimes, right? Do you know what I mean? And
Yep.
sometimes it doesn't serve you so well. And sometimes people can take advantage of that, whether they know it or not. You can be taken advantage of. And so yeah, be careful of what you tolerate. Yeah, that's what I'd say, because you are teaching people how to treat you, right? So it's not their fault if
Right.
they think, oh, Brian's a pleaser, I'll just tell him anything and he'll do
Right.
it, right?
Right. They didn't get that pushback to say, oh, that was painful. When I did X, that was not received well. And eventually they get the message. But I've heard, it's interesting you said that. I've heard the difference between like being angry and being mad. Being angry at someone, you're angry. Yeah, this could be complete bullshit, but it made sense to me. Angry, you can be angry at someone else because you had an expectation and they didn't meet it. But when you're mad at yourself because you had an
Mm.
expectation of yourself and
Uh,
you didn't meet it. So, oftentimes I've been mad at myself and not angry at other people because I'm mad at myself because I knew I didn't tell that person, hey, that wasn't cool. And
yeah,
so
yeah.
and you can't go get angry at them because they didn't know. You didn't, it's on you. You didn't tell them.
Yeah.
You're mad at yourself, but not to
Good point.
flip mad and angry.
Really good point.
Yeah.
Very good point. It's I have a little bit plug in the book again
Yeah.
that links into that, right? Where the biggest problem we have in organizations these days, when you try and do good marketing and try and transform things and all the rest of it, the biggest problem that they pee all over everything you do, it's the senior executives, and it's like, it's not their fault.
Mm-hmm.
Their version of what marketing is something they got in their MBA 20 years ago. So it's my fault that I haven't done a good job of communicating to him, right? So because I might come to him or her and say, I want to do this. They'll be like, no, that's stupid.
Mm-hmm.
It's my job to educate them that it's not stakeholder stuff,
Yeah,
all
yeah.
that.
Whether it's personal or business, expectation setting is where so many traps go wrong
Right.
when people are good at what they do. And I remember even
Yes.
in early days of my own company, anytime anyone was ever frustrated, it was 99% times out of 10, it would be because we weren't clear with each other what we expect of each other. And whether we
Yes.
didn't ask them or they didn't tell us or we didn't tell them, we were just
Yeah.
unclear. And it wasn't that
Yeah.
the person wasn't doing a good job. They're doing a great job. We just weren't
That's
aware
it.
of it. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
That's it. Communication. It's all same with my wife. Every time we argue, it's just because it's bad communication. It's always because of that. And we have a laugh at the end. I'm sure you do as well, right? We just have a laugh at the end of the evening or whatever, or whenever we've got over our own kind of little hump, and and we like, that was really stupid, wasn't it? Yes.
Yeah.
It's a waste of life to be angry with each other.
And if she ever accuses you of forgetting something or losing something, you're just like, look, you knew it from the get go. I lost your email address. Like
Exactly.
you knew that was going to happen again.
Expectations, right?
Man. So have you
Yeah.
done any trips after the North
Yeah.
America, South America?
Yeah. So after I did that North, Central, and South America trip, I got back to London and we started some long distance dating. She was in Denmark, I was in London in England, and then she came over. We lived together a bit, and then we're like, not cut out for this work thing. I don't really like work at this point in my life. I want to do another trip on a bike. Do you want to come? And she said, yes. So where should we go? Well, let's go to India. I've always wanted to go to India, she said. So,
Wow.
and I've already been there. So we rode my motorbike. She was on the back from London to
Was
India.
that a moment of pride for you? Oh, India. Yeah, yeah. Come on.
Yeah,
Hop on
yeah,
board. I'll show
yeah,
you. I'll show you
exactly. I show you the way.
the way.
Well,
Sorry. You're fine.
no, she could ride a scooter, but that won't cut it in the Himalayas. This little
Right.
125cc. So, so yeah. So we went. But we went through the Himalayas. We went up to 7,000 meters, 7 kilometers into the sky on a motorbike. It nearly died when we got to the top, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And there are roads in the Himalayas. It's crazy, isn't it? But so yeah. So we did that, and then we went on to a little bit further to Thailand and all the rest of it. That took a year to do as well.
Wow.
We learned a lot about each other on that trip, and a lot about the world and all the rest of it. And on that trip, we said, let's get married. So when we get back, which is a good thing. And then we said, let's make some babies when we get back and get married. And then one day do a trip like this with our babies. So that's what we did
Hmm.
in 2019
Really?
with our kids. Yeah, we quit everything, quit school, quit jobs, and traveled for a year. Yeah,
For a
for them.
year.
Yeah,
Wow.
just quit and just did that.
Do the
Because,
it sounds fantastic. Do the kids like miss a year in school?
yeah,
And
No, but they can't, that was the thing about Denmark, right? They said, go with our blessing. All the teachers said, go with our blessing. We think that's the most incredible thing you're going to do. They're going to learn stuff on that trip that we can never teach them at school.
yeah.
Go with our blessing, come back, and they can rejoin their old friends in their old class. No problem. Haven't got to skip a year.
Okay.
Crazy, huh?
That yeah, I guess when you get a little bit older, I mean, you're just kind of repeating the same thing every year anyway. So until
Yeah.
until it sticks. So
Yes,
that's
exactly.
brilliant that they didn't have, because I wouldn't want them to, if they can help not losing their friends. Hey,
Yeah,
you're gonna get back there, but
exactly.
that's
But
amazing. Um,
so yeah, do
yeah.
it,
Do you
Casey.
have a favorite place you've been to yourself? Maybe a favorite place that you've been to either with your wife and your family?
A few favorite places, or more of a few kind of favorite moments, maybe. I don't know.
Oh yeah,
It's
yeah.
such a big it's such a big mess, but in my brain, but it's things like there was one bit in the Andes in where was it in Quito, I think maybe, or yeah, no, I was just riding out of Quito, I think. But anyway, there's a huge kind of like I couldn't feel the motorbike underneath me because the beauty was so jaw-droppingly incredible, and it was a huge valley that just stretched out in front of me with the Andes that side and that side, and you could see the shadow of the clouds and these huge epic mountains like this. It was really like something from another planet. And I went through this, if you had this helicopter view of me, I'd be this tiny little black dot going through this huge sort of desert with these mountains either side of me, and I literally couldn't feel my bike on me because I was numb. And when you're riding a bike, you go into autopilot, and I was on autopilot for about an hour, and it just stuck with me. I felt like I was numb and fly. I felt like I was flying. Yeah, it was
Wow.
crazy, and I hadn't done the crack pipe either.
This is a natural high.
It's a natural. But,
Wow.
yeah, so I think stuff like that, right? Beauty, natural beauty. You've got so much with that. I miss America.
Have you been to what about like Australia?
Yeah, we had some
Okay.
time in the last trip. We had a couple of months in Australia and blew us away. Got some friends
Antarctica?
there. Not yet.
Not yet.
Not yet. What about you?
For what, location or moment or
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
yeah.
Anything
Yeah,
in
I
right?
like your moment thing. That's a cool way of describing it because there are a lot of great places. Yeah, I definitely have a moment though. For me, it was honeymoon, and um, we're gonna do Italy, right? And my wife hadn't
Mm.
been, and I had, kind of like India, right? Oh, Australia's around here. So instead of just going with the tour group or whatnot, we landed in Rome, and we're gonna hit certain spots all the way up, and then end up northern Rome, northern Italy, and then back down to Venice to sort of finish off. It's kind of like a whirlwind.
Aye.
We drive, right, and
Oh,
I drive. Um,
perfect.
it,
Ah,
in,
perfect.
it was in a particular place called the Assisi. Have you been there? Heard of it?
Yeah, 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 yeah,
Yeah,
yeah,
good old St.
yeah. Well,
Francis and
yeah, yeah.
little hilltop town. And I just remember we had a great, night. They had cobblestones, and we stayed in this ancient building that was like our hotel or something.
Mm. Mm.
And I remember in the morning, I think maybe the windows were open or whatnot, and we were awoken to trumpets playing
What?
in like
What?
the square. And apparently this was like a flag day. This was like a big, the flag tossing flag day in Italy. And so every town in the whole like little county area
Yeah.
had their own set of trumpet players and flag tossers. So you'd hear trumpets waking you up in the morning in a CZ and then you'd hear some more somewhere else in the countryside, and some more, and then some more. Then eventually church bells all rang, and you're just like, what movie are
Whoa.
we in that we
Yeah, exactly.
never again would you, even if you stayed there, 364 other days, are you going to wake up and it's like,
Oh man.
trumpets playing in the background. It was amazing.
Ah, I get it. You're. It's just incredible, isn't it? These moments
Yeah.
that they burn into your brain. These moments, they somehow they really touch you, and that's what I love about traveling. It's a fantastic story. It's what I want to do when I travel is have a collection of these moments, and you expose yourself to the world when you go out there, and everyone's brilliant. there's not a
Yeah.
bad soul out there. Everyone is just fantastic, right? So it's when you read the news and TV, it's so skewed, that version.
Oh yeah, I haven't been on the news for years.
Well
I use
done.
people as my
Well
little
done.
filters for news.
Yeah.
News
That's
podcast.
really
Oh, did you hear about? No, I didn't. Thanks for
well
letting me
done.
know.
That's really
Yeah.
smart, Casey. That's really smart. I've got to ask you though, in what about when you were a Marine? What were there any kind of what have you taken forward from that experience? And how long were you a Marine for? And what have you how does that still serve you?
Yeah, yeah, 100%. And thank you, by the way. It's a great question. The idea of going, I've heard this before, the idea of, getting out of your own country to visit other countries, especially countries that aren't doing as well. Nothing can replace being in a country where they don't have sewers, right? Country where you're in a city. So for me, it was Iraq and Fallujah, and no sewers. So what does that mean? That means that stuff doesn't stay in your house. It means it goes out your little wall into the street, and a sewer is just your street. And so, but in such poverty or whatnot, we would drive around, and you'd think the news says we're super hated by all the people and not there for a good reason, or who knows. But all I knew is that we drive around, and the kids would come out of their little compounds, and they'd wave at us, they'd chase us in our Humvees, and even the little shy ones would sort of open the gate a little bit, and they'd wave at us with their little hands. And what did we do? Well, we called mom and dad, and we said, next care package, give me a shit ton of candy. And so we get these big grab bags of candy, and our turret gunner would be throwing candy to people every day as we're driving up and down the streets like a parade. It was so
Amazing.
cool. And they would smile and wave at us, and we'd throw candy at them, and like it was
Love
nothing
that.
better. And so it was one of those things where, yes, there was crazy times, and there's wild, exciting
Mm.
rescues, this and that, but just in general, just knowing that, appreciating, what you have in certain countries, but also knowing that they're nice people, and they're cute little kids in all places. And I think the final part was just, um, a, I don't, broad judgment, but I find that the countries that treat women the best do the best, right? And so
Oh.
when I you would kind of see women sort of as like secondary citizens in certain places, and I sort of always extrapolated that, like, for me, maybe it's a longer topic than for the podcast, but it always felt like, when you needed each person of the family to be as important as they were, so that they could provide a maximum amount of whatever that person would provide, so that you were balanced. And it just seemed off balance to me when you were only considering one person in the family. So that was just
Mm.
the thing where I was just like, you know what? We want to help these people, and they're good people. Like 99.9% of them are great, even in Fallujah. It's just a few bad people, and it wasn't even every day. It's the same thing with the news. Bad thing happens every day in this world, for sure. But and if you're in a big country, Iraq is big, and somebody might be angry, and she made a little firefight somewhere, but it wasn't every day for us. And we were fortunate not to be there during the thick of it, but it was never as bad as that. Now you had to be aware and awake and drink enough Red Bull to be cognizant for when that did happen, but it wasn't an everyday thing. So the real hard part is that war is typically boring until it's not. And so you have to be
Mm.
sort of like alert and aware then. But yeah, it
On.
was, it was,
Yeah.
it was huge. I was grateful for the gift of that. I was,
Oh,
and I didn't have any major injuries like some people. So I was very fortunate.
oh, fantastic! What an incredible experience that you
Yeah.
yeah that you educate other people with, right, with
Right.
that story, right? I mean, because everyone knows what what's on the line when you go out there. It's your life,
Yeah.
right? You're serving, so people should listen to these stories because it's I think it's fascinating. I just read Barack Obama's latest book, and I think and he talks about the operations out there, and I think it's fascinating. I really do.
Yeah. It's interesting, reading books of presidents and just understanding that there's just a whole other thing to it, behind the
Yes.
scenes. Oh yeah, got a little rave going on now on your
So
video.
what happened now? I tried to get a little bit of light going on, but oh well.
Oh man. Well, hey, tell me, where can people, let's throw out, social platforms. Where do you want people to connect with you, reach out, say hi, get some more of this amazingness, want to get on the list for the book? Just throw a bunch of links out at us.
Yeah, on LinkedIn again, just probably the best place to get hold of me on LinkedIn. I do a lot of things on there. Again, I
Okay.
quite like to be a bit provocative. So follow me on LinkedIn. That'd be probably the best thing to do. I'd love to chat.
Daily best practices, right? Is that what you have?
Yeah, that sort of thing, right? I went along with you there for a second. I thought, what?
That bastard.
But yeah, well, just hit me up on LinkedIn. I don't use Twitter. I don't use Twitter at all, and I probably should, but I don't. LinkedIn and the website. That's probably
Got it. And it's Brian-Coles, COLES.com. We'll put in the show notes. What about your podcast?
Yeah, so we put it on hold for a little bit because we've been taken over by this massive company called WePro that is, I didn't know existed, but it contains 188,000 people. Massive Indian company. We've just been taken over by them, and we're just trying to find out what we're going to do with all the podcasts. So we had one called Dear Marketing Automation, which was a lot of fun. We got some people in from Salesforce. Joel Odom was our last man, product manager for Pardot Cybersecurity. Nice. He was an interesting guy. So there's a lot of stuff coming, but it's just on pause at the moment because they're just trying to figure out what to do.
So it's really the push for the book is make sure we get, we hear about that. We'll have to have you come back on here. We'll part 2. We'll just philosophize the entire time, and we'll promote the book when it's out and ready.
Love it. It's been brilliant.
Awesome, dude, you're a gentleman and a scholar. You're a philosopher king, and I thank you so much for being on here.
Thank you very much, Casey. It's been brilliant. I so wish I could be over there with you and have some nice New York IPA or some other beverage like that.
Well, I tell you what, a little New England IPA might be, a double IPA after this intense conversation we've had. We need to go get a drink now.
Yes, exactly.
But man, this has been brilliant. I appreciate it, and don't be a stranger. But yeah, for those people listening, this has been the Hardcore Marketing Show. We'll catch you all next time.